Welcome back to Astrology, Angels, and More. We have a wonderful show tonight with a lot of information and an absolutely fabulous guest. First of all, though, I'd like to talk about the fact that this show is actually being taped on January the 9th, 2020. Happy New Year, all. And we are already experiencing some of the effects of the wolf moon, the Cancer lunar eclipse. Now, this Cancer lunar eclipse that we're experiencing right now is a triggering effect for what a lot of astrologers have been talking about, and there's been a lot of talk in the metaphysical world about the Capricorn stellium that's going on in the heavens right now. Brian, could you please put up the chart, the astrological chart of this eclipse? What a stellium is actually a grouping of 3 or more planets in the same sign. And as you can see, this is a chart for the actual time, the exact time of the eclipse, which will be happening on January the 10th at 2:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you notice, there's a grouping that I had highlighted a circle around, and that's all the Capricorn planets that are in alignment. And in the opposite part of the chart, in opposition, it's called an opposition in astrology, is the moon in Cancer, which is triggering all events that will be coming forward for several years in the world, affecting all of us. Now, also, this particular eclipse I had spoken about on the last show, because what has happened is all the energies all the way back to July of 2019 have been accumulated, and we have reached like an emotional climax at this time. There's been power plays afoot, and everything has now come to a head with this particular eclipse. So if you're feeling very emotional, that's why. But a lot of the tables have been turned. Things have been shifted. I'm talking about even in your own life. So also I wanted to say that it would be a good idea, once this eclipse has passed, to realize the lessons learned from it and then move forward, and to move on to the new soul journeys that are awaiting you, because they're tremendous. And the guest that I have here tonight is really going to delve into that also. But before we start talking about that in further depth, I wanted to say that we're moving into Aquarius, the time of Aquarius. And on January 20th, Aquarius, the sun will be moving into the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarians, happy birthday Aquarians, they create major change. And their color, actually, their very, very positive, beautiful color that is very powerful for an Aquarian is electric blue. They are the ones who truly look into the future and can see what is coming up, far-reaching into the future. And they naturally look at the bigger picture. Now, on January the 24th, we're going to have the Aquarius new moon. And what that's going to be bringing is a tremendous amount of change, like a lightning bolt. And there's a new world order in effect here that we're going to be getting into. Now, the other thing is that prior to the next taping of the show, we'll be experiencing the full moon in Leo on February the 9th. And that's a really good time for self-expression and to really tap into your originality and your creativity in order to move your life into a positive mode, especially with all the changes that are afoot. Now, we're going to be talking about Archangel Metatron tonight. And before I even start talking about Archangel Metatron, I would like to introduce my very special, well-respected metaphysical teacher, cosmic shaman, guest, Stephen Popiotek. Stephen?
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming and joining here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here as well.
I'm really, really interested in what you have to add, especially in reference to this Cancer lunar eclipse and about Metatron and all the work that you do. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Thank you. Sure. I'm 48 now, basically. I started meditating when I was 16. When in my early 20s, I had a lot of breakthroughs. I remembered how to look into the sun and do active solar gazing, which catapulted me into a much larger arena of conscious connection to my higher self and to higher realms.
Solar gazing. What do you mean by that?
I remembered how to actively look into the sun in a meditative state for like long periods of time. This is back in the early 90s, before that even became a popular topic.
Wow.
But through that catalyst, Archangel Michael was the first one that showed up during the sun meditations, and actually Krishna, they had appeared to me during the sun meditations without me calling on them. They just appeared there and kind of began a little tutorial process with me, and I realized Archangel Michael was a solar being as well and was a mediator for the solar divine consciousness to come into the planet, which also ties into something that we'll talk about a little later about, involving some of these energies and the aspect of the phoenix, which is part of our transformational process. That this stellium in Capricorn is definitely being a catalyst for that.
It's huge, isn't it?
In both extremes, to really go through that death and rebirth process in a more conscientious way, is helpful, especially with this eclipse as the background. But yeah, basically I also do different guided meditations or groups during new moon, full moon that are channel guided meditations, activations more so, because it's not just sitting there and chanting. It's a very active process. And
where do you do these?
In terms of locally in New York City in the warm season, I try to do as many as I can outdoors at the obelisk in Central Park to access that energy of the placement of the obelisk, which is built on major ley lines, as well as the fact that the obelisk itself is a powerful antenna system.
Very important.
That helps us connect to like the global grid system and kind of like entering more into an artery point when we can affect more change and also create a positive feedback loop when you're doing work at power points. It helps
Absolutely.
you to create that circulation of the chi energy and also to prime up the field so you can tap into the higher realms more easily as well.
There's ley lines all over the earth.
Yes, yeah.
And you've traveled also to different areas, haven't you?
Sure, definitely. But I would say, and ironically, going back to the Phoenix briefly, probably the first group activation I led was back in 1997 at the Cahokia Indian Mounds in Illinois, which at that time nobody even really knew what they were. There was very low advertising about what was happening at that location. Even friends of mine who lived in Illinois never heard about the mounds.
Right.
There,
Right.
We certainly were never taught about it in school during my generation. They were really like omitted out of the whole record book, it seemed like, for quite a while. But these Native Americans were really amazing because but before I even knew they existed, I was visited through my meditations back then with the work with the sun, but they basically came in as these tall, golden like beings that had the Native American sunbird like motif in their fields.
Yes.
So I was like, what an interesting merger of like Native Americans and solar angelic beings, that came to me, and they were pointing out that
people.
Well, exactly.
That's where we come from.
100%.
Okay.
And I just started already dealing with some of the different types of extraterrestrials, but they were just a unique kind of angle of it because they really had that solar power behind them. And then when I realized that they were pointing me to that location, Illinois, and started doing more research, they said I had to go there to plant some seeds again, and the mounds that these Native Americans built there to reawaken this kind of like sun disk energy across America that needed to be reactivated. That was to be a platform for this symbol of the phoenix rising again to help assist us in our transformation and Gaia's transformation.
Yes.
And that these sunbirds were used not just metaphorically, but our higher dimensional beings can appear in that shape, as well as them using their version of power animals that they also have. It's not just about us having power animals that are, in our planetary realm. Higher dimensional beings also have spirit presences that can be a bridge between realms.
Yes, well, I work with the Phoenix myself. You and I were talking about the Phoenix before, and a couple of months ago, my son was a guest on my show here, and he had brought his Phoenix statue because he loves working with the Phoenix energy also. Yeah, very powerful stuff. And how does that Phoenix energy tie in to what's going on with this eclipse right now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, part of it with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which has been going back and forth there, especially during the retrograde period that we came out of earlier this year, those powerful planets, which obviously have extreme highs and lows in terms of how they manifest, that is both planets together really are an alchemical kind of crucible to catalyze our growth and our transformation, and to be able to use part of the, and now with the alignment coming up with the Sun and Mercury during this eclipse period, it's like really bringing the light of the underworld, the gold into the Saturnian lead, and the Pluto to reach the depths of our quantum level, the depths of our collective psyche, is getting illuminated and being able to communicate it with Mercury, and the foundation of this Capricorn, which also governs traditions and time itself. So it's giving us a chance to really reassess our relationship to time and how we manage time, as also to break out of any old loops of thinking that you might have been processing or stuck in. And there have been certain technologies this past year that certain groups that were trying to manipulate these alignments. And you find this all the time. If you start looking, if you're sensitive, there are certain almost like astral weather patterns that you can feel, during certain astrological alignments that catalyze people's emotional states, mental states, interactions. And so some of these darker occult groups that are negative, not the positive ones, along with certain groups in power that have worked with technology, they understand that to maximize their effect of trying to manipulate social engineering, projects, that if they take advantage of these activations that are happening and project out these certain frequencies and different waveforms over different cities, they can manipulate people towards a certain discourse more easily.
Well, what kind of discourse are you referring to?
Well,
such as, how does it play out? How does it show up?
Well, usually they'll show up as on a base level as kind of like simpler, like psychological operations where they want to distract people and keep people more in fear and create more division, especially when there are alignments going on that are giving us a chance to really unite together and transform collectively into a whole new paradigm of society and our own individuality. They'll oftentimes create scenarios where they want to distract us with events going on that are like false flag, staged incidents of different shooters, or like terrorist incidents, or like, distracting through the politics of, especially now it's very easy. We have a total circus going on on many levels in our political affairs with the White House, and the different parties, but also the over regurgitation of just very limited perspective of events that are happening, and they want to tailspin things so people will only use one person, say, as a scapegoat, where they want to, for example, use Trump as a scapegoat for everything, instead of actually looking at the bigger division happening behind the scenes and the larger control structure of the deep state and intelligence agencies and career politicians that are involved in formulating policy far beyond just what one president could do.
You brought up President Trump, and one of the things that I had been looking at when I was looking at my charts in reference to President Trump, on February 9th, when we have this Leo full moon, that can affect him because of his Leo, he's a Leo rising.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Okay, yeah, so that full moon, and so we already have these eclipses building up and everything. And actually, on next week, I'll be doing, I'm going to be a guest on God's Way Yahweh, and I'm going to be talking about the forecast for 2020. And for each sign of the zodiac, and also what's coming up for the next couple of years for the world. So I look forward to doing that. But right now, what's going on in reference to the triggering effect of this Cancer lunar eclipse, I really wanted to get your insight in reference to how you feel that that's affecting our world right now.
Yeah, well, like I said, that definitely starts like on a domestic level, and then you see it manifesting on a global stage, especially we're in the middle of this
Yes.
Iran crisis situation, which is certainly a throwback, to what happened 20 years ago, or less than 20 years ago after 9/11, in terms of Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan, the way that they'll use certain events that are co-engineered to then catalyze larger wars and creation of a police state, which is what we had after the false flag of 9/11. And this particular, elite. I mean, back then there were videos of like former General Wesley Clark talking about their agenda to go after these 7 different countries in the Middle East that they want to topple one after the other, and Iran is like last on the list of everything that they've done so far. So there's a lot of different agendas that happen on a grounded scale as well as on a metaphysical scale. So again, trying to take advantage of powerful alignments, this incredible stellium energy, and what do you want to do? You want to create fear with a potential World War III scenario, which we hopefully don't get into that energy, but the idea of just bringing up that rhetoric in the media of getting people focused on that idea as a way to distract and divert the energy.
Well, look what we're dealing with too with Pluto. I mean, come on, it's Pluto energy you're dealing with here. And right next with with Saturn, and then everybody else joining in, all those other planets, right? I mean, it's just too much. But I really, and then the fact also, I find it interesting that this had happened in reference to Iran, that it was right before this Cancerian eclipse. And the United States of America is the sun sign is Cancer.
That's right. Yes, that's true.
So yeah. So what do you think about that?
Right, exactly. As I said, it's right in between the 2 major eclipses, which are covering that axis of Cancer and Capricorn. So it's definitely, again, like trying to use values to threaten you're feeling unsafe in your home and safe with the Cancer aspect, trying to use the trigger points of our patriotism, of our it's an attack on the homeland type of thing, or they're going to threaten us, and it's like trying to use that survival fear, as a way to try to push people to create policy that they would not necessarily create. But luckily, there's a lot of people in large movement that don't want to have that happen, of course, because it would be insane to go to war with them. And you could see some of the machinations when Iran did some of the bombs as retaliation, and the bases in Iraq, they deliberately did it without creating any casualties.
Absolutely.
More about trying to save face. So I think there was a bit of behind the scenes, where there's a chess game going on, where neither side on the upper level wants it, but then the power struggle between the lower levels and part of the manipulation of the power elite behind it. They've been trying to organize events for a long time to create chaos there. So it's a bit of a chess game going on.
There certainly is. I mean, when you're talking about with Saturn and Pluto.
Speaking of scorpionic pure manipulation of strategies.
I know. I mean, as an astrologer, you're an astrologer also. I mean, you can appreciate, what is really happening here. And people who haven't studied astrology, who have not been monitoring this and watching this, to us, this is like absolutely playing out exactly as we had expected, right? I mean, come on. But the thing is, when you said power play, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about micro, macro. You're talking about power plays that are happening in individuals' lives. You're talking about power plays that are happening in the government, in industry, throughout the world. That's what's going on here. So now what I want to know from you is, especially with the work that you do, what exactly is, how is this power play of Saturn and Pluto and that stellium and the eclipse interacting galactically? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, well, on a higher level, Saturn is also home to what is called, what some people call the Confederation of Planets. And this is kind of like a local, think of like a United Nations type of situation, but on a galactic higher dimensional level.
Yes.
So a lot of the star nations that are positive, have a huge presence on Saturn and around the rings on a higher dimensional scale. So it is a great outpost on a higher level of where those ascendant masters and higher beings are co-governing part of the evolution of our solar system and are involved a lot in Earth's transformational process into this age of ascension, age of Aquarius. And so that there, but whenever you have powerful planets, though, of course, the shadow that they can cast can be equally on the other side of the extreme, and especially with certain groups that have been working behind the scenes a lot, they want to, who seek to manipulate instead of unite, they'll try to do certain techniques and methodologies to twist the incoming frequencies from the planets that are coming into the Earth to try to emphasize more the shadow aspect. Just even think of like the old school Greek mythologies that surround some of the planets that we talk about in astrology.
Yes.
And how some of these archetypes and beings interacted in the old days. And a lot of times some of these archetypal stories are like watered down versions in a way because it was seen through a lens that was very dualistic, very competitive, very trying to make it more relatable to local people at the time. Whereas the higher esoteric level, it was much more sublime, much more heart-based, in the positive lens. Like, for example, how would you view the relationship of a particular planet if they only were able to act out of love, and like rewrite the mythology based upon that idea of how would Zeus and Hera get along if they only were on a love level, if there was no
Right.
division or jealousy or competition or rape or violence, how would these beautiful beings combine together?
Right.
And that's really what part of the test is happening, is that these planetary energies, some of them have civilizations that are on a higher realm that are catalysts for the initial storylines, and they propagate some of the energy to us actually through the gravitational waves that are coming from the planets.
And what
So-
do we do to combat this?
so, well, I'm still saying. So, in a way, so part of the problem, part of the challenge is just about releasing or breaking through the veil that has obscured us from authentically engaging in dialogue and spirituality and experiential matter, the pure energies coming from the planets and the higher civilizations that are here. I mean, even just locally, because there's been a lot of technology that has been designed to increase this kind of electromagnetic veil, or more like the matrix around the Earth and around people in different cities, to try to negate or block some of the flows coming in. So it's even more important that we really reclaim our sacred space, work in nature, work with the elements, so that we can create a safer, clear connection to the core of Mother Earth, so that because Mother Earth is getting involved with these new energies.
Yes.
She's feeling these waves of impact and the conjunctions and the alignment that occurs as like lenses in a telescope, with the gravity waves between the planets get more focused. So it definitely creates especially when the squares are going on top of that, they create right angles, with electric fields and magnetic fields. So you're dealing with like a lot of pressure. It's a really intense chemical pressure cooker going on, But in terms of the bigger catalysts, we've been also seeing a lot more cosmic and galactic energy coming in, where some of the infrastructure of the geometries that are in the Earth on a higher level are shifting. For example, some of them look like pillars of light that are forming around the Earth on many levels. On people have taken photographs over the time of different areas where they've seen the aerial phenomena of that as well. But they're definitely, at least, they're multidimensional columns, which in one level symbolizes like the pillars of the new temple of Mother Earth, that she's creating a new infrastructure a waveguide to be able to hold new frequencies of love that's coming in from other star systems.
Well, the
And,
Native American people had seen this a long time ago coming.
For
You
sure.
and I were talking about that before.
For sure. And,
Yes.
and so the idea is that the more we can center ourselves and clear out the noise in our background,
Yes.
first it starts personally and then a local ambient environment, and really ask the angels for assistance to help us with meditation to create a clear line of sight, so we have a clear signal coming in from the higher realms that has least interference of being distorted by technologies or negative thought forms or other people's baggage, because a lot of people's stuff is coming up during this period tremendously. So if you're in a big city especially, you may feel a little overloaded by just the empathic overload of other people's crap coming out that they haven't maybe taken responsibility for yet, and that's kind of being thrown around and added to the mix.
You can feel it.
Yeah, which is kind of
You
really
can just
yucky.
feel it, right?
Like, oh my God, if people
I
get so
know.
agitated in the subways or trains, or they get very much more anger, or they drive more,
Aggressively.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
So
were
plus-
just talking before with Brian.
the passive aggressive
about
energy
that.
comes out of, there has to be some ventilation system to harness that energy. So if they're not taking accountability for their own inner house and their interactions with their own passion, with their own heart center, it's like the house of cards is going to start crumbling more. And
Well-
by Pluto and Saturn, it's going to be very direct in terms of really creating more of an intense situation where people have to face their stuff, or they're going to be manipulated again to recreate it.
I really feel then you need some strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about some powerful strength from someone like Archangel Metatron?
Yes.
So this is Metatron right here, the statue of Metatron. And, this is a statue of Metatron. And also, Brian, you have a picture to put up of Metatron, and we have one behind us too, right? Yeah.
And there's even the Metatron's cube right there behind us.
Yeah, right behind us. Right. And that's Metatron's cube. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Now, Stephen, can you explain what Metatron's cube is? As Metatron has that cube that he holds, he's in charge of. What is that?
Yeah, and especially,
thank you, Brian.
Especially with the diagram that you're showing, it illustrates it even more, because sometimes you just have the basic pattern of the Metatron's cube, which is made of 13 circles, where the outer part of the Star of David looking like pattern has 6 circles. The middle one has 6 circles, and then there's a 13th circle in the middle. And the way he has it portrayed here is more accurate in a sense of showing some of the internal geometries that are mapped out if you were to connect the circles, not just in the Star of David looking pattern,
right,
but connecting them in different ways. You can create each of the Platonic solids, and you have the Platonic solids that are represented as the points on the chart that the viewers are gazing upon. So you have like the cube there, right, on the bottom left. You have the octahedron on the very bottom. You have the dodecahedron on the bottom right. Icosahedron upper right. Tetrahedron upper left. So the Platonic solids were the basic 5 geometric containers, right, according to Platonic sacred geometry studies, that were the containers for the 5 elements, right? So the cube was able to hold the energy of the earth, the octahedron for the air, the tetrahedron the fire. So each of them has different elemental qualities to it, and with the dodecahedron being at the top for the ether or spirit energy, icosahedron of water. So Metatron being the archangel kabbalistically also who governs the crown chakra or Keter,
yes,
he's the doorway to unity and oneness. So he's showing us that the energy of oneness has to manifest as creation is going to take on a geometric template in order for creation to have a stage to manifest.
And how do you work with that?
Yeah, and exactly. So part of the working with geometries like that, even if you were to visualize some of those individual geometries that are encoded in that Metatron's cube, in the visualization process, it's powerful to work with them, for example, with the colors. So you can vary the directions have different colors based upon also the elements.
Yes.
And the seasons of the cycles of the year relate to that movement of the change of the elements, right? So it's not just about, it's a directional system in space as well as a directional calendar, right, in time, where the elements kind of morph into each other. Or like for example, us going from the winter solstice into the spring equinox, moving from that northerly Earth direction, back towards more of the spring fertility energy. It's part of the reminder that there's a constancy of change in creation. Nothing is stagnant. And then once we become stagnant, that's when entropy occurs and lack and chaos, and things implode, and you have things that need to be shaken up, that's more death and decay. It has to be
Archangel Metatron, in my own practice, I suggest to my clients that when they want change in their life to call upon Archangel Metatron, and he'll definitely come and help you with that, right? Big change, and especially right now what's going on, and if you want change in a positive direction, because as you were saying that, we have all this yuck that's going on around us right now, right? We need the angels' help.
Yes.
And if we want the change that's happening right now, because we can't escape the change that's happening right now.
No.
It's impossible. Okay. So what we need to do is work with the angels so that we can move it in a very positive direction, right?
100%.
Okay.
And especially with Metatron and being as a bridge Kabbalistically and with the cosmic shamanism work I do, he's the bridge from our local solar system to the galactic central sun,
yes,
which is the center of our galaxy. That's the central point of the hub that unites all the star nations and our Milky Way galaxy. So it becomes like the next greater center, through which the various parts of creation honor the source of the Creator's light as it comes in from one stage, from one realm to the other, like the turns of the great spiral that manifests from like the universal scale, galactic scale, planetary scale, lunar, earthly scale. So it's creating stations of relations between each level so the energy can flow from oneness into the manifest rainbow and back again. And so,
beautiful.
So when you said about new beginnings, because he's the archangel that governs the first center in the tree of life,
yes,
which is where the first seed or the logos, the thought, is created, that then snowballs down like the lightning path into the earth to create that manifestation. So he is the bearer of that white light, the higher spectrum, to help you in new beginnings, to go back to that fresh perspective.
Right. I do also reconnective healing. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
I think you have, the reconnection. And Metatron works with that kind of energy very well.
That makes sense.
And also multivite that we were talking about before. Okay?
Oh, yes.
And multivite also can create change because multivite is not a crystal. It's actually a piece of asteroid that has come down to Earth. And Brian, do you have a picture of the multivite that you could put up? Multivite works very well as far as change goes, and you can work with Archangel Metatron with your multivite. But it's a very powerful. I don't want to say stone because it really isn't a stone, is it?
Well, that combination of like the fusion from above and below when that meteor had impacted that part of the mind.
It's heavy duty. And so thank you, Brian. But what stones do you work with in reference to Metatron? And because I know you do a lot of crystal grids, right? So if you could go into
for
that.
me also works. I definitely feel like kyanite and selenite work a lot with.
Yes.
And anything that works with the crown chakra or the upper chakras would be a direct doorway for me with the Metatron energy. So working with the violet ray and the purple ray, and then in general the white light energy. But definitely kyanite, selenite for me are usually more direct for me with that. And sometimes I'll program other stones that may not have traditional qualities that may want to take on a certain role at that time, because the stones don't want to be also overly limited as well. They can be antennas or battery packs for the chi energy that you put in them, as well as the fact that they're built into based upon their colors and geometries of the material making it up. They act as a unique kind of lens, right, to hold a certain energy, and
you just put that beautifully, Stephen. Thank you so much. So that is why we pick certain crystals to work with when we're trying to create different energies and changes in our lives, right?
Yes.
Okay,
for sure.
because you just put that perfectly. I love it. I love that explanation.
Crystal light vitamins,
Yeah, like vitamins. Crystals are like vitamins. I love it. That doesn't mean you swallow them.
No, exactly.
Okay, no, you don't swallow them or eat them or chew them or anything.
Visually and through touch.
Right, that's all.
Or elixirs.
That's all. That's all. But Metatron is actually called the angel of life, right?
Well, yes, his angels that work with him are called the Chayot HaKodesh, which means holy living ones in Hebrew. So they're definitely that first inseminator of the divine spark that has now chosen to enter the tree of life, which forms the foundation or blueprint of our physical reality. So it's that first idea of the Creator's desire to manifest, itself on other realms that actually have a stage of physicality behind it. So he becomes that intercessor between the great beyond and our local reality.
Well, because he worked here on Earth as Enoch. Do you agree with that or not? I'd like to know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've heard different stories about that too, and
Right.
I haven't really formed a solid opinion on it. I've felt Enoch before a few times only over the years, and with some clients I worked on.
Right.
Enoch came in, our Nokian magic system. It was for me a very different energy, of course, which makes sense because a being is going to manifest in different qualities and different incarnations. But I don't know if I'm fully sold on the fact that he was, but I kind of leave that one out there.
That's what's believed to be.
Exactly. No, it's true. It's definitely written about.
And Sandalphon.
Yes.
Do you ever work with Sandalphon?
Yes, of course. And him being Sandalphon on the opposite extreme, he's with Malkuth, or the Earth chakra connection, Earth star connection. So they work in tandem nicely to build kind of bridged above and below together, so we could anchor it in between, in more like a middle world. So it's like the old adage of a deeper roots that a tree has, the taller its branches can become.
Yes.
So if you're just working Metatron and not Sandalphon, it's kind of like you're only working on the branches and not the roots. So it's Sandalphon helps you ground more into the earth, so you can connect to the divinity within Gaia, and then Metatron helps you to expand out to the cosmos and realize that everything is evolving and that we can be part of that evolving tree of life that is also shifting. And for me, Metatron's cube ties into that as in a way had a seed of secrecy in it, because it has 13 circles and a normal tree of life has 10 or 11. And so for me, in the new system that I teach with the evolved tree of life, there are 13 energy points, so which fulfills the Metatron's cube for more in a complete way than a traditional one would. So there's also the fact that, and 13 goes back into death and resurrection. And,
yes, it does.
In the tree of life, 13 is a pathway that goes from the heart chakra to the crown, or Tifereth to Keter, and it passes through the underworld, which is governed by Pluto, and that's so we go
again.
We're getting back into the eclipse, and then
there we go again.
And Saturn falls as Bina in the tree of life, which is the divine mother, or like the right side of the brain, right side of the face. So there's that thing of that area between like the throat chakra and the right side of the brain getting activated with Saturn and Pluto Kabbalistically as well, helping us to like transform relationship to the mother energies and what we want to give birth to, and also not being caught up in the old webs of lower confinement that the lower side of Saturn or Capricorn that has hindered people has been like more like the trap of the matrix. So that's why sometimes these groups nowadays are they were really being desperate the past few months and trying to just up the notch of negative projections to try to add more of a negative spin to the new year and the new decade, because we're going into this powerful new decade.
Very powerful
with these
decade,
eclipses
boy, let me tell you.
demarcating like pillars right just before the new year and right after the new year. These eclipses are like the two gates opening up the space for us. And I think with Chinese New Year's coming up, also that's always a powerful time for me, that when I really feel the new year energy. I think this year is January 24th or 25th, I think is the first day. Always when you have the moon in Aquarius there, with like the new moon in Aquarius. So that also is going to be a powerful demarcation point, I think, to really kind of digest this activation that's happening with the planets and stabilize more.
And how does all this tie in with the Phoenix rising?
Yeah. Well, I started mentioning a little bit before where the first grid work I started doing a group was 97, and that was grounding the seeds of this higher Phoenix energy that was coming in from the sun as a symbol, which of course the Phoenix has been around for all different cultures and different indigenous tribes have worked with variations of the sunbird theme. For me, the Egyptian part of it was known as Bennu. The Phoenix bird was Bennu, Bennu. And I mean, they paint a much more beautiful iconography about it, even more so than what the Greeks had with the Phoenix, where the Phoenix first rose in their story as a kind of symbol of the birth of creation. Where in this one of the stories, it was a primordial mound that rose from the waters of chaos, so to speak, from the 8 directions, and this primordial mound that was hatched where the phoenix bird came from, the primordial mound or stood upon it. Either he hatched from a sacred world egg and then cackled the great sounds of creation, is how they talk about it, similar to like the idea of the Om and for the Hindu system of creation. So you have the idea of the sun, the light, and then the sacred sound, the word of God idea coming together with the light of God to then be as a herald for like the new dawn, for the actual stage of a given creation to form. So the Phoenix energy is coming back as a symbol of that heralding of the new age, that it's time to reorganize a new foundation so we can hatch the new egg that represents the culmination of our wisdom we've gathered through the precession of the equinoxes, the great cycles of zodiac, and now it's being initiated to open up the stage into a new domain, where we're more on heart-centered basis and more connected to divine light and divine love.
And how can ordinary people who are not astrologers or shamans, how can they incorporate the Phoenix energy in their lives?
Very good question. I mean, for me, when I do some of the group meditations, for example, was it one of the recent full moons in Sagittarius that we had?
Yes.
During that one, was it full or new? It was new moon. There was
the new moon.
Yeah, it was a new moon in Sagittarius. That one, there was a big theme where the Phoenix was coming in. There was coming in different symbols where we were asked to give birth to these baby phoenixes that were coming in through these eggs of energy, because it's not just about our solar idea of the Phoenix, it's also that there's a galactic Phoenix. Different star nations that work with the bird tribes will harness the energy from their stars, and so there'll be like a blue Phoenix that can come in from the Pleiades as well as from Rigel and Orion. So sometimes they'll come in, and these priestesses from the Pleiades embody that blue Phoenix idea. And they were kind of like an extension of the Isis Hathor energy in the Egyptian mythology, since one of Isis's homes was said to be in the Pleiades, and the 7 Hathors were part of the 7 stars that represent the Pleiades. So for me, part of it's about first inviting the energy in, because the same way when you work with angels, you have to call on the angels to come into your space, to help you, and that because they're not going to violate your free will and just, come to you unless it's an emergency.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So it's the same way with higher galactic beings or higher power animals. You have to give them permission. You have to show them that there's a desire. So for me, when I was doing some work in the sun, doing any kind of sun meditation where you breathe in the light of the sun into each chakra, facing the sun, and then turn around and breathe it into the back of the chakras.
And that's what you're suggesting they can do?
I would say there are very basic ones where I do that 3 times. I call it the 777 meditation, where I start off facing the sun, breathe it in. Where I kind of see the sun as like a waterfall of light coming down, and it pours the light through my body into the core of the earth, and it goes back up to the sun. So it creates a ring, kind of like a toroidal field idea. So it's idea about you stepping back into a conscientious relationship with the light that the Creator is sending us, that is not just about physical birthing, that the sun has only been taken for granted as being a dory for, but it's here to assist us and transforming our whole being, and feeling that the love of the Creator is connecting to all stars, and our local star is a like chakra in the body of God. It's like a neuron in the the mind of God. And there's so many beautiful beings that are living on a higher dimensional level on the sun that are the catalysts or the catalyzers of the phoenix energy, and they can send that energy to you, and you have the sun in your heart Kabbalistically.
And you can just feel it come in.
Exactly. So you breathe it in. You can do like the seed mantra sounds you have for the chakras there. You can put some chakra music in the background.
Very nice.
Then you turn around and breathe it into the back, because we collect a lot of stuff in our back of our chakras that need to be cleared out, like a filter system.
That's the truth.
And then when your sun is behind you, the idea is that you're an extension of that solar light.
Yes.
To remind you that the Creator's light hasn't left you, even though you're not facing the Creator's light, so to speak. You're an extension of that love. And so then you call on those phoenixes on each color to come through you, because they're like spirit animal energies in a higher level as well. Then you turn around one last time and you face the sun, and you do the same thing for a third set just to seal it in place. And and again, the more you can feel the passion and love in your heart, the more that phoenix energy will come to you, because it's about the fires of rebirth that are forged in the heart of the sun.
And this is a perfect time with this stellium of planets, this eclipse, and this year, what's coming up. It's the perfect time to do that exercise, isn't it? That meditation.
Absolutely. And it's also one reason why I also record all my group meditations, and I can make them available for people on Dropbox. I send links out, because there are themes that come in where the higher galactic beings come in with the tandem with the angels to help create new thought forms that we can use to ground the intention during a certain astrological cycle. So there'll be different archetypes that are more malleable, right, during a certain alignment that occurs.
Yes.
And you have more clear access to that. And so if you work with some of the symbols that relate to those archetypes in your meditation practice and visualize them and call on it, it helps to rewire your whole system, so you can take advantage of that current that's now being introduced, due to the alignment, right?
Okay.
So you can have fun with it too, and not just about over serious. You want to have fun with your spirituality, and have the inner child partake in that magic and mystery of life, because the phoenix is also about that spontaneity and like the hope and the optimism.
Oh, yes.
And we've also had the opposite going on the past few months, and a little bit where certain powers that be in negative groups have tried to pervert that symbol, and they've made it more, which that symbol is also, again, everything has a light and shadow side to it, and it's up to us to be able to see through the illusion of the pollution, of some of these symbols and numbers and constructs. So, as far back as Egypt, there's been the other groups that were the opposite, who felt threatened by the sun culture, felt threatened by the solar beings who were coming to inspire humanity, lift us up with new arts and music. So they were creating the opposite. They were creating more of a black phoenix, a shadow aspect of the phoenix that was that certain negative groups work with, or called like the Black Sun. Even like Hitler groups, they had like the Thule Society in World War II, the darker group that was behind his power structure. They worked with this black sun symbol that had like a double, that actually had 3 swastikas that formed the dark zodiac wheel. So a lot of these groups will pervert like the tree of life and the tree of death, and so you have this, similar idea again of understanding, how they seek to divide us is kind of important, because then we understand how to take back our power. Because we don't understand that you're being manipulated, then you fall into their ruse or their illusion.
Well, what's happening now is the tables are turning.
It's all coming
for the
out.
power. It's coming, right? It's coming out in order to get our power back. True?
Yes.
Okay. So, and what about crystals? Like, what crystals do you use? Because I know you make crystal grids, you said.
Yeah.
That you use crystal grids and you bury crystals at different points on the earth, you were telling me, and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while, but that was definitely going on for a number of years, where I was called to do that. It's about asking and seeing what wants to happen in that situation. I mean, I have quite a collection, at home as well, and I've had more. I used to make a joke, because I had so many other crystals that just would disappear, like literally like off my altar in my room, and I was like, wow, I'm like, I feel like the crystals are using me to ascend sometimes. I
love it, Stephen. That's a good one. I like that.
The crystals can definitely go like multidimensional. They can appear to other places when they're done. When you're done with you, they can go somewhere else. And
oh my goodness, Stephen, I have to tell you, okay, because I've experienced it myself, and I have so many clients when I suggest multivite to them, they end up, they think that they put it on their dresser and then it shows up in the kitchen or something like that. Yep. You know what I'm saying? It can,
absolutely.
Seriously, we're not kidding.
This is real stuff.
We're not kidding.
I've had a few pieces of multivite. I have no idea they're all gone now. I
know. They just, I don't know, get up and walk away.
It's pretty funny.
Anyway, it's pretty cool.
But they're very powerful. I have different altars in my apartment, and then when I work with clients, I'll add add extra crystals to the main altar that are unique for that person that I'm working with.
Yes.
Sometimes I want to come in and be combined together in certain patterns or certain arrangements next to each other in a certain order so that they can refine the transmissions that I'm channeling in for the client and working with them. So, that's, and then when I go outside and do work outdoors, I'll, travel with my portable altar cloth that has certain symbols, and one of them has like rune stones on it and different crystals inlaid into it. And I'll bring certain crystals, I'll ask them. It's about communication. I'm not trying to be arrogant about it. Like, I ask the crystals who wants to come today, because they can be very playful, and they can be quite direct with you about, wanting to say, yes, I want to come, or no, I don't. I want to be here, So you ask them if they want to participate in the ceremony, and then when you're there, you ask them intuitively, okay, who wants to be next to each other today?
Yeah, so intuitively, though, what you're referring to,
yes.
so we can be crystal clear. Okay. You like that, huh?
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
So that we can be crystal clear, the communication is intuitive.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, there are plenty of, people that teach workshops on the specific functions of certain types of crystal grids, and that's a whole science in itself.
Right.
I've studied some of that over the years, but for me, at this point, it's more about what I feel my direct communication with them, and to me is going to take prime importance over a technique, and
over a technique,
yeah,
right?
And that's also I probably approach my ritual work too, and the group work and individual work. There's a lot of things I've learned and are writing about, but there's also a lot of it that's organic and in the moment that has to be there, because if you're too stuck in lower Saturnian thinking, you're not going to get the Uranus age of Aquarius energy needs to catalyze you.
Absolutely.
And the Uranus connects with the Metatron energy as well, with that lightning bolt of inspiration and that catalyst to transform you.
Oh yeah, and now we have Aquarius coming up, right? I mean, my goodness. Talk about that.
I always look forward to that one, yeah.
Talk about that, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. So how do you think that, because we're talking about like some really heavy duty big changes here, not just in reference to the power plays, we're talking about, now we're going to also have some Iranian energy that's going on here from Uranus. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, it's always something that I always look forward to. I always feel I have my Mars and my North node in Aquarius, so it's always nice when I have that season coming and the sun aligns that. It's always a nice motivational spark for me.
Yes.
And like opening up more of that gateway.
Yes.
And like I said, I always feel that for me, I always feel the New Year energies really start around Chinese New Year's, and again that they line up their lunar calendar with the Aquarius energy. So to me, that's a greater kind of confirmation, just in terms of, being able to be like, okay, this is like Western New Year is like trial run number one, and then when we get to Chinese New Year's, it's like, okay, you have to act together, because now we're really entering like the new decade, and the energies are coming in to really create the springboard, a platform. So this is a great time right now with the eclipses to really clean your house, so to speak, literally and energetically.
Clean your house. Clean your house.
Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so you can really be more open to receive the blessings when they come in during the Aquarian season without it getting dissipated or dispersed.
Because there are, we've been talking about like, a lot of negative things in reference to this eclipse and all of that, right? But there's some really positive, beautiful things that are coming with the Aquarian energy, correct?
100%. No. And even with the eclipses there are, because it's, when we start working with the last one, again, this part of the new grid, one of the grids we work with that's coming in, it looks like almost like a web of crystal eggs, which in a way is almost symbolic of like the neural networks, with the neurons being like the eggs and the connecting points bridging the synapses, so we can create new antenna systems. But that kind of structure is forming around the Earth, where there are these higher dimensional like eggs of light that are containing these new phoenix energies, and they're like windows forming on the eggs. Think of like a geode. If you were to crack the rocky exterior and see the crystal inside, it's kind of like that similar idea, where these phoenix eggs are like little mini solar orbs that are forming, and the windows are like windows into eternity, like windows into infinity, that want to show us that we're able to branch out, that when we can receive more love, from in general, from the angels, from the sun, and from the planets, then we can receive more love from other star systems, and from the cosmic sun, the universal sun. Ideas expanding our quotient of how much love can you know that you deserve to receive in your life, and how much can you surrender your old constructs that have limited you through judgment and pain and guilt and trauma, that have tried to define you instead of redefine you. And so you need to let go of that.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, love. Isn't it really?
Letting go of all the constructs that have dammed or blocked that flow of love from getting to us.
Yes.
And really asking the angels to help you remove all interference and all vampiric energies that have tried to divert that flow of love, and in your soul gifts, that you can really ground it in your body.
And to give that love back out.
100%.
And that is really, really key here.
Right, love is the ultimate free energy, right? It never runs out. The more you give it, the more it creates and expands.
Exactly.
So it's pure
Exactly.
order of the creator energy.
And I also feel astrologically what's coming up is that there's going to be like sudden enlightenments that are going to happen, that people are suddenly going to have a tremendous inspiration about something, you know? And these
Yep.
are all good things. These are beautiful, beautiful things. Very, very innovative. But also now, in reference to the crystal grids, though, that a lot of people don't understand what a grid is.
Oh, I mean, a simplest type of grid would be like if you have a symbol like a cross, for example, and you put crystals in a pattern so it forms a cross.
Right.
That'd be a very, or crystals in a circle. You know, a traditional grid is like an array. Think of like a tic-tac-toe pattern, you know, where you have vertical lines and horizontal lines that are equally spaced. You know, so you have like actual grid is like a matrix in terms of not the matrix of control, but a matrix that represents mathematically like an array or an equally spaced little like sections, you know,
Well,
that could be boxes, right?
I
Yeah.
brought a picture that I had shown
Yeah.
you in reference to a grid. Now, this isn't exactly like your grid.
Sure.
This happens to be a Reiki grid. And this grid was created by a Reiki master who actually placed one of these energy grids at the North Pole and one at the South Pole.
Nice.
Actually physically placed them there. And so that Reiki and good energies, all good energies, being sent for Mother Earth. So,
Very
but
interesting.
this is the type of grid that he put together.
And yeah, and there you have like,
but there's all different.
well, yeah,
ones.
because also you have like the floral pattern, right, with like the petals of lotus, like having the symbolism of lotus, like represents energy fields and the chakras. And when you have double terminated crystals, you know, having crystals face a common point in the center is like spokes of a wheel. So the idea is similar, where I work a lot with the wheel symbolism as well, and the
Yes.
wheel is very important. So you have
Yes,
points
it is.
points that form like spokes that connect to the center, and they also radiate out like a starburst. So that way you're connecting up something in the center to something larger as a network outside of it. So the energy flows both ways. So, you know, so there's a geometric, scientific way of like, you know, how do you line up these little like equivalent transistor resistors in a circuit board? It's like depends on what calculation you want to get or what effect you want when the energy flows through it. You know, so sometimes can be very simple ones, or another one's like 8-directional one, you know, where you have this like spokes of a wheel, like an eight spoked wheel, and you put the crystals along it, you know, in the circle. It's very powerful, like with the Nordic symbols of like protection. They call it the elm of awe, right? That they use with the and they have different runestone symbols on it as well. You know, other ones can do, you know, we can make them into triangles. You can make crystals lined up so that they create different geometries as well, and then they can harness the power of that element.
And that's why you line them up a certain way in order to harness the power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it creates like an
Okay.
antenna for the higher beings to use as a focus point.
Right.
It's the point of an altar is to create a medium between you and the creator and the higher realms, so
Absolutely,
that the higher
yes.
beings can actually induce the current or the inspiration, the energy to you, you know, through that artifacts that you've put energy into. And for me, it's about, you know, it's not about externalizing our power. It's more about that these crystals, or I have other statues and other pictures of different beings. Like for me, I have a relationship with all of that. So for me, I've discovered all that inside myself. And so when I have these many objects, I'm not substituting my connection. It's more like I'm externalizing something I already found inside me.
Yes.
And they become a reflection of my own.
Good point that you just made.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you're aware of what a Mesa is. You do know? Okay. I
Been out
have
to Mesas, yeah.
Yes, I have a Mesa. No, I have a Mesa that I carry.
you carry,
and it's
gotcha.
a portable altar. That's really what you're talking about here, which is of all the experiences that you have had and have overcome in some way. Very personalized.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Actually, I had done a show. I was interviewed by Christine on her show Spiritual Exploration and the Native American Healing Show. And I had brought my Mesa and I had opened it up and I explained everything with all the stones. It's a bunch of stones actually that
That's
I'm
right,
carrying,
okay.
but each one represents something from within inside me. Okay. Kind of like a medicine
That's
bag.
perfect. Yes, yeah.
Okay, right.
That makes sense.
And so that's a little bit different than a grid.
But that, see how they work
because
together
the
perfectly,
grid,
though.
right, exactly. But with the Mesa, you can also bring into the mix of it maybe clear quartz crystal or something to activate it even stronger. Because when I'm doing some of my medicine work, my Native American healing, I'm using my Mesa. You see what I'm saying? So similar to what you're doing with your portable altar.
It makes sense. It makes sense because
Yeah.
you're also honoring like the traditions of like positive moments in time that you experienced,
Yes.
and creating a network out of them. And that's an important thing to do too, is to build this network of love moments in time.
Absolutely.
You know, that can build the propensity for the new year instead of the stop, go, or rewind or loop, and be able to
Yeah.
really launch off. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm
and-
glad this eclipse
yeah.
finally happened.
Yeah.
I'm really glad it happened because now we can just move on to brighter, beautiful beginnings.
And also
you know?
revealing secrets. I think this will be a major year for that with this alignment to really unleash a lot of things that have been kept separate or secret from us will come out, I think, even more so. And it's definitely a very
yeah.
important part of that, of us demanding more disclosure, you know, from the government as well, especially with like UFOs and technology. And there's like small drips going on along that routine too. And like the Navy put out a few amazing patents, if people haven't known that, this past year and this past summer, that are really like small, like admissions to some of the covert technologies that we're using. You know, they actually put a patent out for a compact fusion reactor. It's basically free energy. They basically patented how to create that. They also put one out for the triangular UFOs that people have seen over the years.
Oh, yeah.
They actually made a patent for that. And they actually talk about it directly in the technologies they describe in a patent. Blew me away. I was like, this is stuff that we talked about in the conspiracy world that they're emitting now directly. And they even say in there that they have they can
Coming
create
to
a
the surface.
Exactly. That now they can also create a high frequency gravitational wave generator. So they're actually saying that they can create gravity waves through electromagnetic means. These are like huge admissions, and the Navy, head of the Navy put it out, and like patent office tried to refuse it, one of them, and they actually contacted the head of the aerospace company. Yeah, and the Navy said, no, these are not theoretical patents. These are operable patents, which means they already have it done, so they're just looking for the paperwork to get through with it. You know, so there's like this whole thing. There's going to be a lot more of that UFO disclosure things going on. I think that are going to be really important. But there's also a tug of war because the dark groups don't want that information to be fully out there yet. So we really need to put intention for fuller transparency in all areas of life to come out during this year. I think is important.
And collectively, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Collectively, we can do that. Because now, the other thing is that I wanted to mention is that we're going to have to be wrapping up pretty soon.
Wow, time flew there. Yeah.
Okay. And the time has flown
really
talking
did.
with you. I love speaking with you, Stephen. You're so, oh my goodness, you have so much knowledge.
Oh, thank you, likewise.
I respect you so much. And, you know, you've given a lot of information here tonight that I feel that our audience can utilize. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you.
Seriously, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to our audience. And, you know, you can also see this program on YouTube. It's also all the programs of astrology, angels, and more are on YouTube that you can watch at any time that you wish. And next month's show will be the Valentine show.
Oh, nice.
And it's going to be, it's going to be a lot about love. And a lot of beautiful healing information. What's coming up for you?
Well, I'll be doing a group meditation activation for this eclipse, which is tomorrow, a day after we're recording this. But I usually do them every new moon, every full moon in the city. I also do teleconferences with that, so people can also find out about that as well.
Okay.
On Facebook under my name, under YouTube of my name. You know, I do sessions on the phone as well as in person too. And with one last little Metatron, you know, and the Kabbalah, the actual God name is I Am That I Am, or Eheye Asher Eheye is the God name that relates to Metatron. It's that first initial spark. So it's a way to think about what do you want to put after the word I Am, in terms of not limiting your identity, but really connecting it to the bigger sense of self.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Whatever you put after I am, that's what it is. That's
Metatron
what
will help you
are.
peel away the layers of the
Absolutely.
onion to get back to that pure source
Thank
of
you,
yourself.
Stephen. Thank you so much. And thank you. Many blessings. Many, many blessings. Many bright blessings to you.